Johnny Somali has had his addiction exposed and how he is going to suffer in Korean jail in his latest prison letter. We're going to get that today on The Legal Mindset. We teach you to be your own judge. Now, as you all know, we have been tracking the case of Ramzi Khalid Ismail, aka Johnny Somali, since the beginning 2 years ago. And he is now sitting in a Seoul detention center, the Nambu Detention Center, as his appeal is ongoing. And that will determine what happens to him, whether it's extended even longer, if he's sent to this forced labor prison. That's all going to be determined over the coming months. And the only window we really have into Somali's thoughts and what's going on is these prison letters, which are being leaked and exposed as we go. Now, we've already gone over one of those letters, but we have a latest letter which goes deeper into his thoughts and what's going on with him. So let's break into all of that. So here we go. We have this, and I'm going to be reading this for you because the handwriting is a little bit messy. So Somali starts the letter by thanking him and giving the information for his commissary. Obviously, we're not going to put that information out there so people aren't sending people Johnny funds. But he asked for Game of Thrones for a paperback. He says that would help him to kill time with a fiction novel. But then he really gets into the meat of it. So he says, I will answer your questions honestly, but to be upfront, since I do not really know your identity or motive, I will have to be careful what I write. I will not lie, but some things I cannot fully express while still on Korean soil. So let's stop right there. This person is just a random person that's writing him. We don't really know the intentions of this person. Obviously, this person is turning these things over to the public, so they want them to be leaked. Now, this could be a person that is pro-Somali, anti-Somali. We really don't know, but clearly they want this information to get out there. Now, whether or not Johnny knows this, whether or not this was planned, we can't say. But it is fair to say that these are things that Johnny is willing to say regardless. He's just willing to go out there and say no matter what. To continue on there, he says, also, if you could include an unused stamp in your next letter, I can write you back a lot quicker. I was very curious of the social media and traditional media coverage of my case and sentencing. I would really appreciate if you could screenshot or print some of the articles in English or the top Reddit or X threads, right? Twitter X threads. So stop right there. Johnny Somali exposed the first thing he's really going for. The thing he really cares about here is his social media appearance. Johnny Somali, if you guys don't know, Ramzi Khalid Ismail is addicted to what people are saying about him. He's constantly watching every video on him, etc. He watched all of my videos, was always there to seethe and hit a dislike button. So one thing I've said about this is his punishment is being away from the internet, away from social media, away from being able to track this. He just has a TV. He doesn't have anything else in there, and that's really just Korean programming. He's not getting Johnny Somali news 24/7 and being able to think he's the center of the world because people are putting bad press out on him. Part of that addiction is cut now. He's not able to get that. This only is fed. His attention is only given through these letters, and he is already hurting, and it has barely been a month behind bars. And you can see he goes in the next page here even deeper into what he wants and exactly what he thinks is important. He says, or even YouTube reactions, even Korean sites translated in English. So he's fiending so hard. He wants anything. He just wants that hit of social media validation. He says the Korean opinions would be interesting to read, but I would like to see Western and Korean opinions. I heard it made the New York Times, so I would love to have that too specifically. So somebody told him somehow it got out there. Maybe this was, circulating at some point. Maybe there's a copy of the New York Times in the prison. Who knows? Something like that. Now, that article was absolutely horrible. We reviewed it. It had some information that wasn't entirely accurate or wasn't the full picture. It also painted him in a very neutral light, which I think was very weird to do. Perhaps because the New York Times is mainly something that is for rather elderly people that aren't aware of the internet, so they don't have as much context here. But he wants that information because he's addicted to thinking he is the most important person in the world. A key factor about these nuisance streamers is they think they are the center of the universe. Says it was on TV for a couple days in all the cells, and we have Korean newspaper clippings here, but it would be curious to see the general consensus of the outcome. all of the guards and inmates know who I am. So he's getting this false importance because they know who I am. So he thinks, oh, he's so important. He's some sort of VIP. He says, living situation. At the moment, I'm staying in a cell with other foreign inmates, but I have been given the option to stay alone if I would like. I think most foreign inmates are Chinese. So he's in there with a bunch of Chinese people. He has the option of going into solitary, essentially. You know, if he wants to go into a solitary cell, which would not be as preferable, trust me, if he wants to go there. He also said treatment of facilities. I've honestly been treated very well at the detention center and have tried to accommodate my needs to make me feel comfortable. I've been given the option to eat a foreigner meal, and that is tailored to my dietary restrictions. And I can choose what to eat from the Korean meal, which is surprisingly good. The medical care is good, and the general living conditions are not all that bad. I am not in a prison. It is different. A word in Korean is gochujang, something like that. So this is an important point. And I do believe, by the way, that maybe they give him an option of another meal, but that meal is not going to be great. This is definite cope on that quality, saying, okay, yeah, it's surprisingly good. No. This is not, gourmet food. This is absolutely the very, very simple meal. But on that point specifically about not being in a prison, he is not being fully informed of what's going down. Previously, he could watch my videos and find out exactly what's going down because we're working with multiple people that are insiders, people that have vast experience in the Korean legal system. We know exactly what's going on. He is unaware of this distinction between a detention center and a prison. And he doesn't know that he's being held here during the pendency of his appeal before he gets sent to the prison where he'd be forced to do labor, right? He doesn't understand this is a separate section. No one's explained this to him. Now, mind you, he just fired, or rather his private lawyer, quit, left, etc. The one that was formerly funded by his roommate, Hank, and former ally, who is now turned a little bit of frenemy, if you might say. That's gone. He's with a public defender. And in Korea, the thing is, lawyers are only going to do that bare minimum that is required unless you push them usually to ask more questions or go further. They're just going to give you what they need to give you and not anymore. So they're not going to go out of their way to explain everything that's going on, the entire system, unless you're actually going there and pressing them with questions and actually asking them the right things, which Johnny Somali has no idea how to do, particularly with the loss of his ally, Hank. So he goes, it's pretty low security and like a summer camp. We just eat, go to recess, work out, watch TV, and read the newspaper. There's no forced labor. We just relax and do nothing all day because he's not yet in that labor prison. That's coming next after the appeal. So if he, for example, gets sentenced to a year or 2 years, the sentence is increased, then he would go on to that labor prison after the end of his appeals. He says foreigners are not allowed to work or be in a cell with Korean nationals. Korean Americans can be put in with foreigners. That's very true. And that is also true that they can't work. And that's actually something that in the prison, there's some jobs that actually people find, hey, they're a way to kill time, a way to do something different. He can't do that because he doesn't speak Korean. Yes, I have social interaction with other inmates every day within my cell block, and during my outside time. I also interact with guards and inmate staff that can speak English. I am like a celebrity inmate here and treated very well by all the inmates who shake my hand and always say hello or yell Somali from the cells and cells through the windows. I have had inmates young and old shake my hand and even ask for autographs, which I did 4 or 5 so far. That might pop up online, so I drew some nice art. The staff are always talking to me, sometimes with a translator, and making sure I'm safe and okay, and the staff tell me I should live a nice, kind life and treat people better in the future. Some of the inmates have even said that they are my fans, and I have made good friends already. This is exactly what's wrong with Somali. Somali is treating validation, particularly validation from criminals, as positive reinforcement, as something good. And this is a problem with him. He doesn't really care where this validation comes from, even though it's coming from the most degenerate, the worst of society, the people that are absolutely at the bare bottom, the absolute dregs, which is his Discord, these other people that support him online, the various people that may back him up. Even though it's the absolute worst, he doesn't care. He doesn't care where that validation is coming from as long as he is getting validated. He's just getting that attention. And for Somali, attention is his addiction. He also says here, and this is most important, that the Korean legal system, I am a little bit uncomfortable to talk about this topic in detail. This is because he doesn't want exposed how much he doesn't know and exactly how wrong he is. He, I think, has an idea that these things are getting leaked and getting out there, and he doesn't want his ignorance to get out. So he says, as I do not want to jeopardize my freedom further, I will say that the American system, while flawed, is infinitely more fair, and leave it at that. In my personal experience, the Japanese justice system is more fair, but the correction facilities are worse than Korean. So this is actually fairly accurate from all of my comrades in Japan that explain this to me and have talked about this. The Korean penal system is generally more Spartan, less good than the Korean system, but it's not saying much. That's a matter of degree. It's not, it's once again, this is not paradise. This is not something that's absolutely fun. But knocking the Korean legal system is because he's failed to actually take the time to engage with people who understand it and have conversations to educate himself. He relied on flawed advice. He relied on single source. He relied on people that weren't experts in the Korean criminal system. And that has proven his flaw all along. So let's go over to my judgment. So in judgment, Ramsey is absolutely addicted to social media and his public image. We see that through his prison letters. And the longer he is behind bars and kept away from that is the better. We got to get, like with any addict, they need time away from this to come down, to drop off of this addiction and make themselves right. As much time as he can get in jail is better because he will not have access to that and his public image will eventually fade away. Also, it confirms he is not receiving accurate or comprehensive information on his legal status. Now, this is very important because it goes to his appeal. He is not going to be making the right decisions, the right strategy, and really the right thinking without knowing everything he knows and needs to know about the Korean legal system. And the public defender he's assigned is only going to give him the bare minimum. So Somali is probably going to be surprised when they tell him, which he probably doesn't know, that he's going to have to stay in prison in this detention center longer than 6 months because of his appeal. He hasn't received that bad news yet, I think, and that's going to be an absolute surprise. Somali does not know what's coming, and I think that's an absolute glorious thing. But I want to know what you guys think in the comments below, and I will catch you on the next one.